friends. Welcome back to the Field and Garden Podcast. It is your friend, Lisa Mason Ziegler. And y'all, I just had such an outstanding discussion with Heather Staten of Heather's Flower Farm from Oregon that I just wanted so much to share it here with you guys, because she really shared some points about the whole farmer-florist biz that I hadn't even, in all these discussions I've been having, that just hadn't come up. And so I wanted to share this replay of a Facebook Live that I actually did with Heather. And so let's just take a listen and let's meet Heather. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. It's Lisa Ziegler here from the Gardener's Workshop Farm in southeastern Virginia. And I am just tickled to death to be here with Heather Staten of Heather's Flower Farm, and she is all the way on the other side of the country in Oregon. Welcome, Heather. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. So I'm just looking to make sure we're really on Facebook, and I know we are because I can see, there we go. And so folks, you guys know that we've been talking to a lot of different people in the cut flower, as I like to call it now, food chain, because there's so many different pieces to our industry, right? From growers and designers and design studios and flower shops and farmer florists, and there's just a lot of different pieces. And as we are still in the midst of Jenny Love's Farmer-Florist School Online's enrollment, we're just really trying to share what past students' experience were with their class, with her course, and how it helped, if it helped, what was the help. And so, but before we get into any of that kind of stuff, I really want to let Heather introduce herself, and I'd like to hear just a little bit. So tell us where you are, Heather, and kind of what you do, and then I'll feed you some questions to get some more information out of you.
Okay. So I farm on about 3/4 of an acre of an 18-acre property that my husband and I own in the Hood River Valley in Oregon. We're about an hour east of Portland, and kind of between Mount Hood, which is Oregon's highest mountain, and the Columbia River Gorge. We're in a really fertile valley there. I've been flower farming for about 4 years. Started with a little tiny bouquet subscription to 10 friends. And now I'm up to about 50 people in my CSA. And this year I started weddings and events after taking Jenny's class. And I do a little tiny bit of grocery, but it was a great experience this year doing the weddings with the background from Jenny's class. And in fact, I was thinking, I know you've asked other people how they started flower farming. And I started the way kind of a lot of other people do, which is I had a really nice landscape around my house, and I wanted to have flowers in the house, but I didn't really want to cut into my landscape. And so in the middle of winter, I was Googling along, trying to find out about tulips for cutting flowers. And I ran into a blog that Jenny did on growing tulips as cut flowers. And Jenny actually has a ton of great growing blogs that she's done over the years. Great chrysanthemum one, field growing lisianthus. She's got a new method for growing tulips that I did last year, which is awesome. So anyway, so she was kind of my gateway to flower farming.
That is so awesome and good to hear. And I totally agree. There is, once you start dipping your toe in and you kind of know what to look for, growing stuff, there is a lot of great information, and she has some really great blogs. And of course, now she's added the No-Till Flower podcast. And I think that's where the new tulip method that she actually is following. And I know that has changed so many people's way of growing tulips. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the things that from watching her course as I was a reviewer of it, is tulips are a key component to doing wedding work, right? I mean, it's that early flower that you really, really have to perfect your model of growing it, because you have to have them like for a long period of time. So let me ask you, Heather, do you have a cooler?
I do have a cooler. Yep.
So when did you get a cooler in your walk of flower farming? Was it the first year, the second, the third, or what was that like?
It was the second year, and it's transformative, and especially for things like tulips. Yeah. I don't think you could really grow tulips commercially without one.
Right. No, totally agree. And I think that's one of the things that she and Dave talk about in that podcast is there's just some flowers when you're growing them commercially, whether it's for weddings or to sell direct to the people doing weddings, you can't do it without a cooler. I mean, they just move along too fast, right? So I want to talk about your business before we dive into what your thoughts were and how that helped you. And it's really good to know that you found your way to Jenny before you actually learned about her course, because I totally agree. Her years of experience of growing has really played in to her painting a whole landscape for people. It's like she has the business side, deep information, but she also offers all this growing information. So you say that you're growing on 3/4 of an acre. And so you've done a subscription, you're doing a subscription. And I want us to repeat the talk that we just had before we came live that I asked you, did you ever do farmers market? Tell us about how you came to subscriptions.
Because I was rejected by the farmers market. I tried to get into the local farmers market, and they had other flower farmers, and they said, we don't need any more. And it was the best. I was really disappointed. It was the best thing that ever happened because I still have another job off of the farm. And so Saturday is a huge farm day for me. So to give up a whole day at the farmer's market, that would have been terrible, actually. And the bouquet subscription is very controlled. We make them on a certain day. They get delivered at a certain time. I know exactly how many to do. They're all pre-sold. That business model has worked great for me. And also it's very front loaded in that almost everybody pays for the full season at the very beginning of the season.
Yeah, it just continues on we always have to remember to not be discouraged, because when a door gets slammed in our face, you just have to look for the windows, right, that are open and around you. And I totally feel like, after I had this great discussion, I don't know if you saw it or not, with Dave and Ellen and Jenny and Steve and Gretel. Last week, we did a Facebook Live, and then we made it into a podcast about the flower business opportunities that are coming, that are just rolling at us at 100 miles an hour right now because of the state of the flower industry. The global supply is disrupted, which means that people that have relied on getting their flowers imported for all these years, all of a sudden are looking to those of us. Have any florist or flower shops knocked on your door to ask you about supplying them with flowers?
They have, but I have a few florists that I supply to, like wedding florist, but
Okay.
not the shops so much.
Okay.
I basically I can sell everything I grow through the channels that I already have.
Yes.
So, I'm not looking to branch out to different things.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. It's just that we're getting messages from people, whether it's students or just people in general, saying, oh my gosh, florists are calling me. They found out that there's a flower farmer in town. So what I'm trying to get to is that there has just never been a better time for anybody at any level, whether you want to start a CSA, farmer-florist business, become a flower grower, or to ramp up or expand your business, because there's so much demand. You just have to figure out what you need to do it right.
And I think COVID has really helped the flower business. I mean, my bouquet subscriptions went off the hook then because people were so interested in having beauty in their lives, and but I think it's continued.
I think that you've really hit the nail on the head. COVID has definitely turned the flower industry upside down. In addition to some of the global supply chain problems, more people are at home, more people are looking to make life a little sweeter at home. I mean, the gardening industry I can tell you, as somebody that owns an online garden shop, it's like the world is all of a sudden gardening. It's the best thing to happen to the garden industry in decades as the flower industry. So I want to hear a little bit more about, so you say that you're a family farm. So you have, so how does your family help you, and who is your family?
So my husband is really handy and builds anything that I need built, helps me with my irrigation system. I've got a college-age daughter who helps with the bouquet subscription, making the bouquets. And then a college-age son who's great at digging holes. I just planted, I think, nearly 50 woodies this year, and he dug all the holes for those.
You know, there is nothing like having that support system. I don't know how people that either don't have that or don't have family that's interested in what they're doing actually make it, because I'm in the same position to you as you. I have a husband that's just willing to do whatever it is I ask. If I just mention something at the dinner table, you can believe in the next few days he's going to show up and say, you know what I did? So that is just really totally awesome. So your CSA or your bouquet subscription, you feel like has just really ramped up. And then, so when did you take Jenny's course first? Tell us that. Were you in the spring or the fall last year?
I was in I think I was taking an early spring.
Yes. So it would have
just before COVID, because
yes.
She finished all the classes and then we had the COVID class.
Yeah. Right. And so you jumped into weddings in the industry when the industry was falling apart, literally. I'm sorry, my golden retriever is under the table, moving the table. So tell us kind of how you got involved with with doing weddings with your flowers, and kind of how that was for you this past year, or last year you started, right? Tell us kind of how that all transpired.
Yeah, so Hood River is a destination area for weddings. We've got amazing mountain views and river views. And so a lot of people come here to get married, and we've got some great wedding venues. It's just a really natural fit. And also wanting to arrange flowers, I really like the artistic side of it, and for greater profitability. You know, there's just a lot more money in arranged flowers than wholesale flowers. So that part was a natural thing to want to try. And I had people inquiring in the previous years, and I had done a few small things, but felt like, you know, I wanted to have a very professional approach right out of the gate. Because when you're doing weddings, people are paying you thousands of dollars for like this, one of their biggest days in their life. And yes. So you have to exude confidence and professionalism. And I didn't want to make it up as I went along. I wanted to have someone guide me so that even if I was a fairly new wedding designer, that the customer experience would be seamless and professional, and that they would feel comfortable that I knew what I was doing. And so that's the reason I took Jenny's course, and she gave me that foundation.
So people started asking, so how many weddings did you do your first year, do you think?
So, you know, actually, so the previous year I did a few, in 2020. And then this year, 2021, I was just kind of looking up what I did. So I did I wanted to do one full service every month of my growing season. So I did 5 full service weddings. I did 6 a la carte weddings, and then 19 that were DIY buckets where people were, you know, just selecting, you know, bulk blooms.
Kudos to you. Congratulations. That is, and you know what you just said, which is paramount to me, and people that are just starting out don't even realize this is a choice. You said, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to do one a season instead of just grabbing every piece of business that comes your way. Don't you feel like that's one of the things that I think that Jenny is really good at communicating, is it's really up to you to find your customers, and not all the customers you find are really going to be a great match, and how to sift them out. Don't you think?
Yes, definitely. To sort of shape the business so that it fits your strengths and what you want to deal with. The wedding business, and she's really good about saying this, but until I actually experienced it, there is an awful lot of customer service, a lot of hand holding. And people want their hand held at every level, the full service wedding, but also the DIY people want their hands held. And she's pretty adamant that that's not part of that service. And so one of the things that was very useful was she had wording on her website and in her contracts and in her email templates of her communication with prospective couples that really describe the services and set those boundaries so everybody knows what to expect. Because I think kind of without setting those boundaries, you could have infinite conversations with people who are picking up, 3 DIY buckets. You could talk to them for 40 hours, So, yeah.
And I totally, I don't think people get that. And so, we've never done weddings. We have never done DIY buckets. We've always just sold our flowers by the bunch or by the bouquet to our customers, except one time, one of my original customers from 20 years ago, who has continued to be a member of our program here for all these years, calls me up and says, my son is actually getting married and I'm doing the rehearsal dinner. She is, and they're all flat. These are my garden club ladies, so they all do their own flowers. So she said, Lisa, would you be willing, in the middle of July, I need like 200 or 300 pink flowers. I don't care what they are. And I said, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, we always have way too much pink in July. You never have anywhere to go. Everybody wants yellow and orange. We can do that. Oh my gosh. That started a fester of, how many emails could that take? It was a phone call that started it. The emails, it's like she actually finally emailed me and said, I'd like to bring some swatches by. And I'm like, I do not even ever want to see a swatch. How quickly it spiraled out of control and took an excellent customer and made it, she's still a customer. Well, not anymore, but we are still, Suzanne and I just took care of it. We just realized what a mistake we made by not setting boundaries. And when I saw that in Jenny's course, I thought, good gracious, thank goodness that somebody can teach us how to control this, because it's crazy, right? It's really crazy. So I'm just so impressed by your first season. So tell me a little bit about, what do you feel like? You've mentioned so many things, and I actually kind of wrote them down here as you were talking about, that she really just kind of gave you the confidence and the professionalism. Don't you feel like it's so much easier to speak to customers and to kind of like, I don't want to sound like a power freak, but to take control of the conversation from the very beginning and kind of draw that line in the sand? And I did not realize that she also gives you email templates, right?
Yeah, because there's a lot of communication. You've got sort of the initial inquiry and follow-ups and stuff. And she has a very, she's a great writer. So she's got a very gracious sort of turn of phrase. But also, when you look at her templates, they maybe answer questions that you didn't even think to ask. So it saves you some time with your customers, because they would probably you'd go back and forth, and she kind of gets it all done clearly, in a single email or two. So just having somebody flag the things to consider in advance was really good.
Yes. And so I just want to point out a couple of things. We have a nice little group over on Facebook watching us, and I understand that you're not a big Facebook user. You're, as most farmer-florists aren't, they're Instagram folks. However, you do participate in Jenny's alumni closed Facebook group. That's part of her course? Is that right? So how did that kind of help you and give you a little help when you needed it, when you weren't expecting maybe?
Well, it's continued to provide help. I asked a question in the last month or so about renting versus selling, the vessels that you use to make arrangements in.
That question. I didn't realize that was you, but I remember reading that.
Yeah. The other thing is that's very cool about the course. I'm actually planning on watching it again this winter, because when I watched it, I hadn't really done weddings. I'd done, a handful. Now I have a whole season under my belt. And I think that there's just a lot that went past me the first time. But now that I've had, very specific experiences, I'm kind of going to go back over the winter and rewatch those. To sort of fine tune my system, because I think there were things that part of it is just like the time management. I spent far too much time on certain things, and maybe didn't charge enough. So I'm looking forward to rewatching her class. And then the Facebook book was great, because all of us, or a lot of us, had our first year of weddings, and so particular experience would come up. A customer was asking for something, or we needed to figure something out. And so to be able to pose a question to the group and get that answered really quick was very helpful.
Totally agree. And I want to highlight to those that are watching or listening to us that one of the things that I think is very undervalued is how going back and rewatching, particularly these long courses. This is a course that's dripped out over 6 weeks, so there's just a lot of information to take in. How you can revisit it at any time. You have unlimited lifetime access. But here's the thing, because I hear this from our students, and I have personally experienced this in courses that I've taken. When you're sitting down to watch it the first time, just like you just explained, you're so overwhelmed, you're missing 3/4 of the content. You're hearing, oh, that's what I have to do, and this is what I have to do. When you go back and watch it again after, whether it's 6 months or a year later, it's like, oh my gosh, I never even caught that the first time around, right? I still go back and watch. I took a course 4 or 5 years ago, I can't even remember, on making online courses. And I go back and rewatch her entire course every winter, because I still go, oh my gosh, I've never done that. How did I miss that key piece of information? So I totally agree and affirm what you're saying about rewatching it. And so what happens with the Facebook group, friends, and we're on Facebook, so everybody that's watching us is likely to be a Facebook joiner, is during school, there's a closed Facebook group that's for your class. That's you and your instructor for 6, or actually ends up being about 8 weeks, where y'all are in there working together, networking and helping each other, asking the instructor questions. But then at the end of that school period, everybody from that class is then rolled over into the alumni class. That is all of the previous students of that same course, and the networking and the support. I mean, I like to explain it. It's like being with a bunch of ants. When you have a problem and you go in there and say, hey, help, I need information, it's like everybody runs and picks you up and carries you around and helps you. It's really an amazing, because I get to see all of our closed groups. I think we have 12, and the community going on is just phenomenal. So I'm glad to hear that it was really helpful for you. And that is also the way that our instructors stay connected to their students long after the class is done. I mean, it's kind of, as Jenny said to me once, it's like infinite, Lisa. You've told me this is the way it is, and we're tied to this course forever. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly right. And that's one of the benefits that we wanted to provide to our students. So I'm going to let you get off of here, Heather. Do you have any, if there's people, registration closes tonight, October 19th at midnight. If there's anybody that's kind of on the fence, and what words would you have to say to them that might help them decide?
I wanted to mention 2 other things that I got from the class that I didn't have experience in before. Even if you have been a flower grower for a while, conditioning flowers for weddings is different than market bouquets and stuff, because the market stuff, I send things out in pretty tight bud. People are looking for long vase life. For weddings, everything has to be really, really open and ready, at the fullest bloom, which is a very different kind of mindset. And so Jenny goes through top wedding flowers like peonies and tulips, and how to store them and how to condition them, and, like, when you should pull them from the cooler to have them open to the right stage. So that's something that you don't normally get in other flower farming classes, sort of managing for events. She also talks about growing some different things that, like, one was really, this is such a small deal, but she loves snowberry as a foliage, which I never thought about. Snowberry is an Oregon native. I've got it growing all over my property. Totally transformed my April and June bouquets, because I suddenly had this green that I never thought about before. I mean, it's a little thing, but it was really helpful. That was almost worth the course itself this year. And then the other thing is about finding clients through digital media. She's got a lot on social media, which I haven't really fully gotten into yet, but she did a great segment on search engine optimization and helping Google find you. And I did the Google business. Followed her instructions, which are very specific. And I went from being a farm that you couldn't find until you were maybe on the third page of looking for a florist in my area to, middle of the first page. And that was down to her. I'm not sure that I could have done that on my own. I just followed her directions on helping Google find you.
Heather, thank you so much for saying that, because, there's so much in this course that I personally feel like would apply to anybody in the cut flower food chain. The customer communication and boundaries, and the social media, and her top 10 foliages, top 10 flowers. And I had not even considered what you just said about the flower conditioning. So true. All of us selling to florists, to supermarkets, at farmers markets, bouquet subscriptions, we are delivering and doing flowers when they're at their tightest that they can be for that flower to go to your customer. Totally different world in weddings. I have not even touched on that with before. So that was the nugget for me. So that was learning from you after doing the course and then doing for a year. You've realized just how different that is. So I wish you the very best. So do you have weddings booked for 2022? How many?
I have some. Yeah, I've got 3 or 4, but I'm getting lots of inquiries. So.
Oh, good.
No.
So I guess, is that a process? Did she help you set up your staging of how you sift through those? Would guess is another big part of the course. Yeah. Well, folks, I just really appreciate Heather taking the time in the middle of a fall day. I don't know, what's the weather like out here? We're like 60 degrees and perfect.
We're perfect too. It's a gorgeous autumn day.
So I appreciate you taking the time. And folks, registration closes tonight. And I want to say this, that what have you got to lose at this point? We offer a 7-day money-back guarantee from the day that the course goes live. So you actually get to watch the whole first week of sessions and decide, no questions asked. We're not going to ask you what the problem is. You just send us an email. So I say that truly with an honest heart to say, next year is going to be the biggest year in flowers. It's the year that domestic flower growers, domestic flower consumers, meaning designers and florists, we've been waiting for decades. It's our chance to shine. And, my personal journey doing all these online courses and publishing them for other people is to get people professional, confident, provide them with the right information to build their business, to be profitable. And I just feel like there couldn't be a more timely course than Jenny's at this point in time. So I want to thank you guys so much. And Heather, maybe someday our paths will cross, and I would love to come see the snowberry on your farm. That was a great tip too. So thank you so much. And I appreciate you joining us. Great. Heather, but before we stop, tell people how they can find you on social media.
So it's heathersflowerfarm.com for the website. And then Instagram, it's also Heather's Flower Farm.
Perfect. So if y'all want to follow Heather, it sounds like she is got her business savviness in line and doing it, y'all. So friends, until we meet again, ciao. All right, folks. So how about it? I think the thing that so many of us are looking for when we are jumping into something new, or we haven't found our way to overcome on our own, it's about having confidence and having professionalism, and to just have somebody to guide us and to share their firsthand experiences, and not just share them, y'all, but to give us the verbiage, the wording, the templates, whether it's contracts, emails, everything, the whole customer service scene. And I think the point that I love the most that Heather shared, that I hadn't even considered myself, is about how conditioning and storing wedding flowers is 100% different than other areas of growing and selling flowers. Where we're always looking to sell them and provide them in as tight a bud as possible to give the customer the full experience. Wedding flowers have to be wide open. They have to be kept beautiful. They have to be kept blemish-free and not bruised. And it's just a whole different ballpark, right? So I hope this helped to answer some more of your questions. Jenny Love's course, Farmer-Florist School Online, The Wedding Process, is nothing to do with designing, y'all. It is 100% the business backside of the process of doing weddings and events. But friends, I'm here to say that there is so much in this course that overlaps for any person in the flower selling business, whether you're a grower selling to florists, at markets, at supermarkets, to designers, to whatever your walk. There are nuggets in this course to glean from. And here's another thing. After you watch this course, you may just have the confidence to jump in to becoming a farmer florist, because as you learn in this course, that when you price properly, this is the most profitable way to sell the flowers that you grow. So friends, I'm going to wrap it up right here. You have until midnight, October 19th, to register for this course. Go on over to thegardenersworkshop.com. You can watch a video from Jenny and you can sign up, or if it's too late, you can get on our wait list for the next year's class. Till we meet again, friends. Ciao.